You're listening to the Inner Confidence Podcast, formerly called the Leverage Podcast. We help you unleash the most attractive, charismatic, and confident you in order to attract quality connections, both personal and romantic. My name is Robbie Kramer. I've been a coach since 2007, and I've helped over 1,300 people level up their dating and social skills. My mission is simple: to help you crush the dating game, build an epic social life, and attract your ideal partner. If you're new to the show, I highly recommend you download my free dating protocol. It'll help you optimize your first dates, take all the guesswork and planning out of the equation. And I like to connect with my listeners personally, so to grab a copy, send me a message on Instagram, Robbie_Kramer.
Hey everybody, today I've got a very eclectic and esoteric group of individuals. Myself, the high stakes, spicy professional poker player. We have Melanie, who's also a spicy professional poker player, who's also very talented and a worthy adversary. She's put in an extreme amount of effort into dating, as it turns out. And we've got Robbie, whose entire fucking career is actually coaching guys to become better at dating. He also helped organize private parties. He's done a lot of stuff in the space. He also runs multiple Airbnbs. He's got a lot of stuff going on. And I think he knows a thing or two about some girls and about how they behave and
that has
all
yet
that kind
to be
stuff.
seen.
And we've got
We have some critics here. I'm excited for critics.
We got the critics too. The critics are already here. Bronwyn James. I think I'm probably not pronouncing her name right. She's a very busy lawyer. She's in high demand, as it turns out, and not always on time. And I don't know what else about her, but apparently she's quite smart and doesn't like things that are illogical.
I would say that's true.
I gave them a little taste of of our argument when I tried to pretend an elliptical was mechanical instead of electrical.
I got the only perfect score on my logic final in my college logic class. So we'll say that. There is.
You must have done well on the
Thank
LSAT.
you.
Basically a logic test, right?
That too, yeah.
So to intro Bronwyn, I told Dan a little bit about my poker history and how I used to have a roommate whose computer I played online poker on, and I had to hide the program and rename it and everything because she explicitly forbade me from doing that. That's her. Bronwyn is the roommate whose computer I used and stealthily hid everything on while she would go out to party on the weekends like a normal college person, and I would sit on her computer at her express disapproval.
Well, it all worked out, no regrets,
it.
but I wasn't smart enough to figure out how she was continuing to use secret programs on my computer. So there's that.
So were you playing party poker back in the day, full tilt? How long were we talking?
It was full tilt and Poker Stars, and neither one of them had a Mac client yet. So I asked Bronwyn to use her computer like once, and she was not like down with it after that. She deleted all the files, and then I had to keep figuring out how to do it on her computer while she was out or whatever. So it was a whole deal.
We might have played against each other back in the day. I was active on those sites, and my foray into poker was like 2000. I started playing poker at UCSD. Same sort of deal with my roommate. I would use his laptop sometimes. Well, I had a crappy laptop. He had a PC, so that was much better for online poker.
Yeah, that was the thing. Melanie had a Mac and I had a PC.
Yeah.
We could have like a funny parody commercial about like, I'm a Mac and I'm a PC with like Gambling World.
You guys playing on each other's laptops. You know, the real OG poker players played poker in their mom's basement, okay? I played on my mom's computer.
All right, is this any better?
My mom doesn't even know how to use a computer, unfortunately.
All right, well, once Melanie comes back, let's talk about what will be the rough focus of this podcast and see if we can come to some conclusions.
I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine.
Maybe I'm
excited about it.
I think I'll need a drink for this.
Let me ask first how you and Melanie know each other. From poker, I know, but more specifically.
What?
Fate brought us together in that we had very we had a couple different ideas of things to do involving seminars, involving teaching poker or teaching logic-oriented games to teach life lessons of sorts, which will be a minute before those happen. But we did get caught up in having being pretty compatible debaters together, because we both like to debate, as it turns out, and
Mm-hmm.
also have really strong views on these subjects. So,
Shocking.
Huh? What's that?
Shocking. Can you guys hear me now, by the way?
It
I'm
is a little bit
hotspotting now.
surprising.
Is this
Yeah,
better?
your
It's a little
internet's
bit
better.
Okay.
I think it is a bit surprising, just because dating is one of these things where every single person has an opinion, and there's no more disparity in any other culture, or not culture, like area, body of knowledge, or whatever you want to call it, than in dating. Like, and everyone's so sure all the fucking time. That's crazy. But we actually do agree on a few things. Yeah, so I find
Do you
that
want
to
to
be
say like your premise, maybe? Like, what's your
Yeah.
like general premise, and then I'll talk about
Yes.
mine, and maybe we can kick it off that way.
Well,
Also, maybe I can chime in. Maybe I can chime in and do a little, sort of like a teaser for the listeners. So Dan reached out to me, and he said, "I've got a friend who's a poker player, and we're always debating about, do guys have it better? Do women have it better when it comes to dating, online dating, dating in LA, dating abroad?" And, we're always arguing. And I feel like if you came on, maybe I feel like we could get somewhere. It would be an interesting discussion. And so Dan invited me, and he kind of, led me to, what's the word? He basically set me up for the conversation, saying we were going to have some critics. So I was excited to come on. And for the people listening, I think we're gonna cover a lot. We're gonna cover, is dating fair for more fair for men, more fair for women? Are the dating markets skewed? Will we see these dating markets correct in the future? And then what is the difference when you're dating in the U.S. versus Western Europe versus abroad?
yeah, roughly all those things. Like, a big part of it would be, are there actual problems that can be solved in poker? I mean, the first thing would just be, are there actual problems? And, like, what are these problems? And, like, is there, like, an efficiency that's being approached later on in dating? Yeah, I mean, basically what you said.
Wait, can you return to the background a little bit, Robbie? Like, who you are and how you aim to be?
Yeah, so I've been a professional dating coach since 2008. I'm 41 years old. And prior to that, I had my first job out of college. I was working as basically like an analyst for a VC company, private equity group in San Diego. I hated my job. And my entire dating and social circle kind of basically, like, after college, after I graduated, it all just kind of went away. And I went from this sort of, easy system of meeting women through my classes, or through school, or through, I was on the golf team. So we would have other sort of parties with other sports teams. And it was very easy to meet people and to have a social life. But then when I started working in an office, it was like, I have never even been on a date before. What do I do? Like, this whole dating idea was just very weird. So I started studying a bunch of stuff that I found online, read some books. It was a lot of, stuff from like these pickup artists, and they were kind of weird. They were teaching these tactics, and it was the only thing at the time. So it was interesting, to say the least. And then I just became obsessed with personal growth and development, because I realized, like, wow, you could actually, I didn't think like having game was a thing. I didn't think you could improve your ability to connect and relate with people. I thought it was just either you were kind of born with it, or you're good looking. And I thought women's triggers for attraction were the same as men. I thought it was all looks based. And then I realized that there's so much more under the surface. So I just became really fascinated with the whole idea of studying attraction, and it changed my life a lot. So that's why I eventually became a dating coach. The 2008 stock market collapse sped that up, because I basically was out of job, and I was in a situation where I could either make this dating coaching thing work, or get another job that I hated. And then that eventually led me to, in 2016, I left the US and I moved to Eastern Europe. fell in love with Ukraine. I have some Ukrainian roots and spent, many years in the dating scene over there, and found that to be incredibly eye-opening and interesting. And then I got married to a Ukrainian woman and moved back to LA. And I've been, I've coached about 1,300 guys over the years around all of these things. So that's my background.
Give me 1 second.
That's really
by the way,
interesting
guys.
because he says that Dan and I have had a conversation about je ne sais quoi, which is my theory is that that there is this inherent sort of charisma, panache, style, whatever you want to call it, that cannot be learned, and that women don't like when it's learned. You can kind of like sniff out when someone's it's like when people will like colloquially term it as like trying too hard or like that kind of thing, but you can kind of sniff out if someone has it or they don't. And the falsification of such, or the trying to blend in as such, is incredibly off-putting, I think, to women, even if they can't quite define what it is that is happening. And my thesis was that people are going about that part of it, like you said, the ability to connect, the ability to relate, in this studious way, as if it's like a hard science when it's not. And so that's sort of the basis for our dating bet, that I, as Dan, can get more dates than he can, because I think I am better at that than him. And he does not believe that that is true.
Meaning you at the reins of his online dating profiles could do better?
Yes, precisely.
I agree.
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out about that. I actually would like if she proves me wrong. But I don't think it's going to be by very much, first of all. But anyway, let me say a few things. First of all, the problem with your thesis is pretty obvious to me. It's very confirmation bias oriented, I think is the term, where like you're just saying that because someone is trying, they don't have it, which is true, but you're not accounting for the people that do have it, and now they have it and attained it, and now you can't tell. Like it doesn't.
I don't believe I can't tell. I believe I can tell. And
I have a lot to
will
say on this too.
I will say that there are some elements that can be learned, but it's through the natural course of changing via human interaction and not via study.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, it's much more something that has to be learned through execution, not through. I mean, 100%. That's so true with like a lot of things. It's so true with like fucking learning basketball. It's the same thing. Like if you spot someone who's trying to play basketball, they're gonna look like shit. And if they're good at it, you're going to be able to tell, oh, this person really knows what they're doing when they're playing basketball. It's because they went through all those trials and errors to figure out what.
But it's not, I don't agree that it's a quantifiable skill like basketball, like that it's all about precision and numbers and getting better at this particular muscle movement. I think it is more fluid and more dynamic and literally cannot be quantified like that.
Well, this is going into really speculative territory. I mean, it depends what you're calling a muscle, but there's totally... there's totally like better ways to connect with people, especially with certain different kinds of people, because different people value different things. I mean, like women, for example, value their emotions being validated much more than, like some hard body of knowledge, generally speaking. And that's like really important.
I like a good hard body of knowledge personally. But
well, you're special. Yes. You're way more into those hard bodies of knowledge. So there's that. And as far as this bet goes, I mean, it's no longer a bet, which I think is suspect, but I'm happy for you to just do the work anyway. I don't think you're going to give me more matches because you're like, we're missing a few points here. But anyway, the bet is just basically that you go on Tinder and you find dates for me. And if they're like good enough that I might actually date with them myself, which is pretty rare in the first place. Like I also have to like them myself. I don't want to waste my time
standards.
On this. Huh? What's that?
Nothing.
I mean, if we're gonna go there, I'll start going after you.
Go after me. I think. Do you think? Let me just ask you this then. Do you think you are going after women to an equivalent caliber to you, or do you think you're shooting slightly higher?
Depends on where we're going. I guess in LA specifically, that might be too high, but in other places, they're absolutely not too. I have no problems in other places, and virtually other.
But you not having problems in other places is not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm asking if you think your standards are equivalent to your value, or if you shoot higher.
Let's see. No, I think they're roughly equivalent, actually. I've identified exactly what they are, and depending on what is valued, like I could do multiple different things, and I have the track record to prove it, actually. So, and here specifically in LA, I don't really, but I mean, it depends on how we're looking at it too. So,
So, wait, Melanie, do you think Dan is going after women of a higher sort of, but okay to use the term SMV,
if
sexual
we're
market
going here, we're
value?
going to get real dramatic with things.
Uh,
You found the guy to come bad
my
with.
thesis would be yes, because that supports my general thesis, which is everyone is doing that. I rarely see people being excited to settle for someone they deem even like slightly less than them or even like equivalent to them in many ways, because they seem everyone, this is like a human condition thing, but
Right.
everyone seems to be able to make excuses for their own flaws, contextualize their own flaws, rationalize them in terms of, you know, why they're there and what they mean, but they judge others' flaws at very like strict face value things. And so if that is true about humanity, if that's a fundamental thing about humanity, which I think it is, then I feel like people do not do a good job of assessing their equals. And therefore that is something that leads to a lot of dissatisfaction in dating.
I think there's a
So-
major. I mean, I want to talk about this a little bit because this is
But I have a
making
quick
really
question. One
Okay, go ahead
sec.
first.
Just to clarify, and the other main thesis is that you can tell if a guy has basically learned to be maybe you can tell if a guy has like tried to fake or tried to learn how to improve his sexual market value, and that doesn't really work. You can like sniff him out.
Can I need to ask a more preliminary question, which is what sexual market value is, because I've never heard this term in my life.
It's just the idea
How
that
do you define that?
it's just the idea that dating is a marketplace, and based on, you know, a variety of different factors that contribute to, you know, what you would rate, you know, a man or a woman, they're going to have different values in the marketplace. Like obviously if you're short, fat, ugly, bald, and broke, you're going to have a very low sexual market value. And if you're a, you know, celebrity of very high status and a good reputation, you're going to be, you know, closer to a 10, I guess, on that scale. So it's just a way to.
So I will stake my probably general ongoing position, maybe outside of your bounds of this conversation, that I don't agree that really exists. So, but we'll proceed from there. Okay.
I can't wait to
wanted
hear more about
No, I'm going
that.
to speak.
Yeah,
Melanie,
I'm excited
Melanie, give
for
me a
that
chance
too.
to speak. I'm tired of being interrupted. Okay, so what I was going to say is quite related to that. In that, like, there's a lot of I mean, in this case, we really have to define how exactly we're going to figure out what these values are, because clearly there's like certain things that are valued more and certain things that are valued less. And there's quite a lot of variance even between guys, from what I can tell. I could talk to someone who didn't really have like a type at all, and he would just like connect with people. You know, if he just found someone who's generally attractive, that was good for him. But that's not true for me at all. Like, I have a type, and it has never ever changed. And so there's clearly a lot of variables here, and this is one of the things that does matter a lot and makes things a lot more complicated, which is that a lot of people have very different strategies for picking the partners that they're looking for, whatever, picking the baits, whatever word you want to use. And so, yeah, we really do need some kind of way of deciding this market value. There's not like definitive 8s and 10s and whatever. You can use the statistical analysis to look on how many matches they get, but it varies quite a lot per individual.
Well, let me clarify, because I think this might answer some of your question. The learned behavior that I am referring to is specifically social behavior. I am not referring to traits that people improve. Those are indicators of high fitness in a mate. For example, someone that transforms their physique, that's an indicator of a high quality of mate fitness. because they're improving their physical fitness, and that directly correlates to how attractive they are. So that is not something that I'm talking about. I'm talking about a style of like communication and social awareness and like all the things that I'm referring to when I say, oh, nice, good work.
So I feel like this would be an example of, obviously I lost some weight, but socially, the guy who wore this shirt, you know, that's dicey, right?
But learn social behavior, like say this, do this. When women respond this way, here is a list of 10 things you should answer. That stuff, the herd can sniff that out. And it's very unbecoming. You can tell the difference between a panache, a social panache that is natural and the ability to feel that versus someone who is artificially performing. Sure. And since that is such an important value, I think in a mate, having that social fitness, so to speak, that is where I do not think you can open a book, do X, and have it read the same. The only thing that improves.
I don't think guys really think that. Like, no one thinks that you should just like live life by reading some fucking book, and like now you get to be social, have this social fucking panache. I don't think
that's what pickup says. That's what. But
do you think there's a learning curve where? Do you think there's a learning curve where you can, at first, just like anything, right? If you're trying a new skill or you're trying to be a better communicator, and you're doing things a different way, it's going to come across as, like you've got training wheels on, and then eventually when those behaviors become more ingrained and more natural for what you're doing, do you think you could still tell? You still think like, oh, that guy?
Personally, I could. I think that there's a sliding scale of like how sensitive people are to it. I think that if it's the sort of thing where a lot of time passes and the natural development of you as a person, maturing, human experience, whatever, is in tandem with that, then potentially no. Like you could say like I was a outcast as a child and I had to like observe people and learn this, and can you tell that all that was no. But like if you're a 28-year-old man who is very awkward and not good at that sort of thing, and you are trying really hard to figure it out and you treat it like a science, the 29-year-old version is going to be very similar at that. So I'll
basically what you're talking about is acting. It's if someone is good at acting or not, and that's also a skill. So if you don't have it naturally and you're a bad actor, then yeah, probably someone will be able to tell.
Well, that's what most of pickup is, and that's why it doesn't work. It's because you're teaching guys who are already terrible actors and have no acting skills at all to become actors, and it's like, good luck. It's just going to come across as all sorts of wrong. They're better off not even trying in many ways.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like pickup is often touted as like, at least to some degree, like a legitimate learning tool.
I don't think any of us.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define it.
A lot of people. I don't think I can see how like certain tools in pickup would be good to just get people's feet wet, kind of thing, and just get them to say something. I mean, I'm not an expert myself, but maybe I think Robbie would agree with me. I don't think a lot of people think that. I mean, to reiterate, I don't think a lot of people think that pickup's like a legit way to pick up fucking women. Like, fuck no. Like, I think the general theme and really the thing that we want to talk about here is like actual self-improvement going to help you a lot. I mean, I think that's a big thing.
My
I mean,
my
how can you
thesis
change
is
your
yes.
results on? I think no, by itself, to be honest.
I think that you can change your value as a person by making qualities that are malleable and are manipulatable by you improved, like, kind of period. If you want to be more well-read, you read more. If you want to be in shape, you go to the gym. If you want to have hobbies that make you interesting or like they're high value, you fucking can learn to play the guitar. You can whatever. Like, all of those things are things that increase who you are, how interesting you are, how attractive you are. All of those elements should be completely exhausted before people complain. And what happens is that people just complain. and they think it's too hard, and they think that finding a really high value mate should be easy somehow, when it probably should be the toughest thing
Oh, it is
for
the
anybody.
toughest thing, you know,
Yeah.
and it's the problem is our I was just gonna say the problem is that our society, I guess, and a lot of this is, I think, Disney and just kind of growing up in that sort of rom-com, time period. They all say that, love should just happen naturally. You should just be hanging out on a park bench and, see your soulmate, and it should just happen organically. And that we all know that's mostly bullshit. And the divorce rate being at 60%. Well, the divorce rate being at 60%. And then of course you got to factor in all the marriages that are unhappy. The odds of that just coming to be, maybe for the greatest generation, my grandparents' generation, that was more of a thing. But now with all the, the different sort of dating markets, online dating, that's really not a thing at all. And what we see is really like three classes of people. We see high status men, low status men, and women. And what's going on now with social media, Instagram, it's like the low status men almost don't exist. It's like a totally different class of people. And the middle class of men is kind of being decimated. You're either high status and you're crushing it, or you're low status.
The middle class in every regard is disappearing.
And you're just
something I'm finding so interesting as I've been listening to this conversation is I feel like this is entirely focused on men, and that's so fascinating to me because I have so many conversations with women who have trouble with dating, and I would give them the exact same advice that I give to men, or maybe not advice, but just say, or the same feedback, which is that you can't fake confidence and you can't fake genuinely not caring what happens in a dating scenario. If you feel fulfilled in your life and you feel like you don't need this, you don't need a girlfriend, you don't need a husband, like I do feel, because most people aren't trained actors, that people can pick up on that. And I feel like the quality of not needing that comes off versus needing that, and that comes off too and is unattractive.
For sure. And well, that's why I literally put my clients through rejection like therapy.
I've got
and
a
I
couple
tell
things
them,
to say.
Well, all right, Dan, one second.
So
Let me just
I agree
respond to
that
Bronwyn. This will be quick. I was just saying, like, you're 100% right. That whole idea that who's the most attractive is the person who's not attached to the outcome, right? They don't give a shit. They're not outcome oriented. And the only way I think you get there, you can't get there by faking it. You can't just one day wake up and be like, oh, I don't care anymore, right? The only way to get there is to actually not care by kind of being desensitized to that worst case scenario, which is rejection. And for me, that's what pickup was for me, was really just getting comfortable with rejection and not taking it personally, and realizing, hey, if she rejects me, maybe it was me, maybe it wasn't, who gives a shit? So I found that to really be the only value in old school pickup, was just getting myself to the point where I was desensitized by trying, and then ultimately to a place where it didn't really matter because I knew I had other options, around the corner.
I have a few things to say. So, I agree with what you said, Melanie, about, obviously if you want to become more interesting, you learn about things that are more interesting, especially that are appeal to the people that you're trying to hang out with. Or if you want to get in shape, obviously you work out, like all that stuff's true. I think there's a little bit more nuance to that. And I have one specific qualm that I aim towards mainstream feminism, which doesn't seem to agree with generally what we're talking about. But mainstream feminism basically says something like, okay, men, you're the problem, and you should fix all your shit and just do better, magically do better. And women, you just go on and keep finding the right guy. The white guy will just come along and everything will be magical. So there's that. And then the second thing I want to say is, I mean, this is just my personal experience, is that there's certain traits that I think we're in a culture that really highly values the sexual attraction element of a relationship, and we often conflate attractiveness with physical attraction with like how hot someone is with like how attractive they are. They aren't exactly the same things, because you can be attractive in an intellectual way. You can be attractive in that you're funny or whatever. But a lot of people don't really value that, especially in first world countries where that's really what people tend to pursue, in my experience. So I personally think that all those things matter to some extent, of like being more interesting, being smarter, being obviously being in shape, or being like, more socially smooth, whatever. But with those specific group of people, maybe it's LA or whatever, like optimizing for physical attractiveness, I think goes really a long way. Like you even said yourself that most guys should be in, it would help a lot of guys to just be in shape. I'm sure there's truth to that. And obviously being non-needy and not attached is how you end up being more fluid and more smooth in the first place. So like all these things like kind of compound. I just think that, I can't really say the story for women, but I can say that it looks much more promising than it is for the average guy, from what I can tell, because the average guy has like 3 major problems to fix before they get anywhere.
But what is the problem, Dan, with them failing in the dating market and not being satisfied in the dating market, and that outcome being a signal for them to be improving themselves? Maybe rejoin the call.
This should be okay. We haven't normally had this problem.
I'm hearing an echo now in mine.
Yeah, I don't think there's noise outside.
Oh, okay.
So while Dan is reconnecting, is there a general premise for this conversation?
Yeah.
Or is there like a thesis we're trying to prove or disprove?
Yes. So the thesis is Dan believes dating is broken. He believes dating is broken, that it's not working as intended, that there's fault on both sides, but there is more fault on the female side than on the male side for unrealistic expectations and no requirement for self-improvement to the same degree that men do. And he thinks that that's evidenced by the fact that, like, whatever it is, 80% of the women are only going for the top 20% of men, or, whatever that stat is. My thesis is that it's not broken, that there are problems that can be solved on a granular level. For example, like ghosting is just bad and there's better solutions for that. But I think it is a market. I think the market is working mostly as intended, and I don't think everyone is supposed to win in a market.
Okay, multiple questions have arisen from what you just said. One is, does he think that it used to work and no longer does? Another is, does he know that almost every woman has an eating disorder? And does he know, what was my third? That I'm really curious to know if he thinks that women are dissatisfied as well.
So Melanie misquoted me, actually. I do not believe that dating is broken, period. That's a wild overgeneralization. I believe that dating is definitely, there's something wrong with it in the US and in first world specifically, because it's totally working in other places from what I can tell.
You said specifically that it's broken. You've said that so many times. You said it's out of whack, it's broken. You keep sending me links to dating is broken. Like, you've used those exact words.
I think Dan might feel like egocentric to the first world.
But do you think this is specifically a modern problem, or when do you think the break happened, or do you think it's always been broken?
Yeah.
Well, there's a number of things. So
to clarify too, Dan, do you think that it's broken for the sense that someone who's at your, basically you or someone in your shoes, someone who's in your shoes is getting the short end of the stick, and it's basically like there's a mismatch in people linking up that are of similar value, I guess you could say.
So I think that's a tougher question to answer. There's a number of things I want to say. So first of all, I think basically online dating especially is broken. I think there's loads and loads of evidence of that. And I actually don't really think, here's what I think. I don't exactly think that it's exact. Let's put it like this. I think that there's a lot of fault on both sides. I think that most men are basically helpless, which kind of sucks, to be honest. Like, there's big faults on their side too, I just think that a lot of the power to do something resides in the women's shoes, and I could be wrong about this. Because like here's what I think is there's these guys that aren't doing so hot. They don't know what the fuck to do. They have no resources or whatever. Then there's the women who are the selectors that
Well, why do you think that women are the selectors?
they generally are, because that's just been the case biologically for a huge period of time.
I know a lot of women who feel that men are the selectors and they feel like they're not having luck in dating.
Well, that's because they're aiming for those handful of guys that have all the power.
I don't agree.
Well, I think in general, I think
Robbie,
what Dan is saying, this being the selector, meaning women kind of hold the sex card and men kind of hold the relationship card or the commitment
But
card.
why do you think that? I know a lot of women that want sex and can't get it.
Well, that's certainly, that's interesting. But
I tend to agree
in
with Robbie.
general,
Women are the sexual selectors and men are the relationship selectors. And that's why, like, Bronwyn, if you think about like, the traditional tropes of like women who are slutty, not being as high value, and like a man who just falls all over himself in love with every woman he meets, like then you don't feel special if he wants you to be in a relationship.
Yeah, but I don't believe in those traditional tropes, and those aren't my experience.
Oh, interesting. I have felt that. Like I would value a guy less. I would value a guy less if he just fell in love with every woman. Like it wouldn't be very, very meaningful.
And I think men value women less if they just fall in love with every man.
Yeah, in general,
That's
I think
true.
if you feel like they're just going to fall for anyone, you don't feel special.
I think that I sometimes think that, and especially in this conversation, that we create this gender disparity that in my experience doesn't exist. I know men and women who are successful in dating. I know men and women who aren't successful in dating and want different things. I know men and women that want just sex and can't get it. I know men and women that really want a solid, lasting, monogamous relationship and can't get it. And so I a little bit just reject this entire construct.
But I mean, I think you're obviously going to find evidence for, certain situations that defy the general population, but
yeah. So where are you getting your data on the general population?
Well, let's just
women love data.
All right, let's look at online dating.
Women love data.
Right?
Give me data. Yeah.
80% of the matches on online dating are going to 20% of the men, right? And now
it's actually
Tinder,
more.
How does it go? And how does it go? And how does it go in the opposite direction? Isn't it the same?
It's a 50-50 distribution. So basically, the way that it works, if you look at a normal distribution curve, the way that men rate women, it's a 1's a 1, a 2's a 2, a 3's a 4, a 3's a 3, basically up to a 9's a 9, a 10 is a 10. But for online dating, it kind of works as a 1 is a 0, a 2's a 0, a 3's a 0, 4's a 0, 5's a 0, a 6 is a 0, a 7's a 1, an 8's a 2, a 9's a 5, and a 10's a 10.
That's how women rate men?
Yes.
How do men rate women? The same way.
Like I said, no. From an actual, like a 4 is a 4, a 6 is a 6, an 8's an 8.
But what's the data, Robbie, on this? How do you know this for sure?
This is just what Tinder's put out, and based on the statistics that they've found in, who's getting the matches. And
so you're saying on Tinder, for example, there is a whole section of men, a whole set of men that's not getting any matches.
0.
And then a 0. And then a certain section is. Whereas for women, almost all women on Tinder are getting some matches.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. But don't you need a control?
What do you mean?
Drumrin, can you raise your camera up a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
I think it might be.
By the way, this is why I sent you that book, Dataclism. You can read this in Dataclism, Melanie, or like literally anywhere. But this is the case on like 700 million data points or something. It's literally the case on every single site ever.
But what about the control? What about the control?
What is the control?
How do we know? So you're saying like these people are 1s and 2s and 3s and whatever, and they're not being rated that way online.
Why?
Are they actually being rated that way in real life too? Is there a control where you see, oh, here are 100 women, here's how men rate them in real life, here's how they rate them on dating or whatever? Like, how do you know that the rating is accurate? Like, what's the control?
So if you pull up your stats on Tinder as a man, and you'll see this all over Reddit, there'll be guys who are clearly, he's not a 0, he's not a 1, he's not even a 2, he's like a 5, right? He's just like a halfway decent looking guy who works and maybe makes, 50, 60,000 a year. And that guy has 0 matches out of, thousands and thousands of swipes, 0 dates, and just nothing at all to show for it. And then you'll see a woman who's clearly much, much worse. And then you look at her stats and they're way better.
But isn't Tinder sexual,
it's still,
like a sexual
it's also
marketplace?
it's still a tough definition. Like, are we agreed on the definition of a 3? What does that mean? This is all a little crazy.
Yeah, you could obviously you could debate whether he's a 6 or a 4 or 5, but like he's not so bad that he's getting nothing. And then you'll also see a guy who's
okay, but I'm just gonna say I take your data point that if you're saying a certain number of men, a certain percentage of men on Tinder are getting 0 matches, fine. But when we start getting into a 1 is a 2, whatever, that's totally subjective. That's ridiculous. We don't have objective criteria for this. That's not data.
Let's ask you.
Objective criteria for this. This objective criteria for this is a 2 is at the 20th percentile of like what the matches should be. It's the 20th percentile of like.
But I heard a should. I heard a should. Should isn't in math. That's a subjective.
No, I mean that's just like how math works.
So much.
So let me ask the ladies here.
What does should mean? No, someone has to define the parameters. What does should mean? What does should mean? What does should mean? What is a 3 should get a certain number of matches? Then what's a 3? You're creating your own definitions. Truly, it's hilarious.
No, the scale is from 1 to 10, so a 3 is at the 30th percentile of the matches. A 3 is at the 30th percentile. Yes.
But you're working backwards. You already know how many matches she gets. You're destroying your whole logic. You're using the same number for 2 separate reasons. You're defining that she's a 3 from the number of matches she gets, but then you're comparing to a man who you say is a 3 who gets 0 matches. So how do you define that he's a 3 if he's getting 0 matches? Then he's a 0. Where this math doesn't make sense.
So the spirit of the claim is that men are kind of getting an
I understand the spirit of the claim. I'm telling you, your data is complete nonsense.
This has been my criticism as well. I feel like the data is incredibly subjective. There's no control for rating.
So Melanie, what you're saying is basically only like the, rightfully so, only the fucking, top 20% of guys should get matches because all the other guys. There's
the should again. This is not math. You're making shit up.
What I'm saying is the way you could prove your point. Here's what I would need to see to prove your point. I would need to see I would need to see an objective rating from men to women, like in just some control setting, and an objective rating from vice versa. And then we see
to compare to Tinder. Yes.
Yeah, we see over what some statistically relevant sample what these people are rated as, right? So we have at least some definitions. Here's a 3, here's a 4, here's a 5. Then we put those people on Tinder and see if that matches to their percentile. You give me that data, I'm in.
Correct.
If you give me that data.
You can, but you're still going to get the same result because, like, look, only the 80% of the guys are getting 0 matches. It's just like the mathematical representation of like where the matches are going.
That's why I said from the beginning that's the only statistic that has any meaning whatsoever in this conversation, and everything else about the numbers is absolute nonsense and has no meaning whatsoever.
Well,
it's not data.
I mean, that's technically true, but still you can say that like that's technically true, but still you can say that like 0.5% of the guys are getting what, like 60% of the matches. It's not that
so let's just go from there. Let's talk about that.
Well, that's fine. It's like we're just using the numbers to like illustrate that point. It's trying to make it easier.
But
like, it doesn't make it easier.
We're illustrating the inequality.
If Tinder is a sexual marketplace, though, if Tinder is a sexual marketplace and everyone's just like trying to get the hottest person that they can, and people understand that women, but you said Tinder is not really a place where people go for relationships. You said
because it doesn't work.
Hold on, we're conflating the bunch of things.
It's not geared towards relationships, right? It's geared towards hookups, like something like Hinge or something else would be more geared towards relationships, right?
That's how that tends to be true, yeah, but there's still issues with both. I mean, to be fair, I think it was a hard problem to solve. And
What do you
There's a
think
couple other
would
things I
happen in a
wanted to say.
bar? Do you think that in a bar, the hottest men wouldn't have the women flocking to them? Do you think it would just...
It would happen in a bar, by the way. But here's the thing of what really happens online is that there's this availability heuristic that happens so that you're constantly putting, you're basically what's happening is like, to want something, it has to be like separate from like what your current reality is, right? Because if you have it, you're already there. You can't desire it, right? So what's happening is all these like, people have been chasing their desires like on steroids with these online mechanisms, and so this has kind of thrown everything out of whack. Where basically most people are no longer desirable. I think this is pretty easy to understand. This is just the way that people work, and so now everything, the Tinder or whatever only puts like the hottest people in front of you, and so does social media. It's all in front of your fucking face, and it appears like that's reality. That's like what's the majority. Well, maybe not the majority, but it looks like that's super attainable. And so the differences in a bar is that in a bar, if it was just like bars, it would become like this much less fast because there'd still be a million guys out there or whatever, million women. And so both sides should be far more easily able to get what they want in a bar had like that been the reality of the past. And that was the reality of the past for a while, by the way, after the sexual revolution. People were quite happy for a while. But only until recently with the rise of Facebook, you can see like a sharp decline in mental health and all these problems starting to exist with basically the rise of social media.
So I don't think that's just because of dating, though, but go on.
One of the issues that we see a lot with online dating is that men and women don't necessarily use it for the same reasons. For example, there's a big... I don't know the exact percentage, but there's a percentage of women who use online dating for validation and validation only. They have no intention of going on a date.
That's a really good point, yes.
And they just use it because, hey, why not? Like, maybe I'll think about using it. Maybe if
based
I'm on the rebound.
What are you basing that on?
What are you basing that on?
Does that?
I got to reconnect.
I don't know any
by
woman
that.
who
You
does
guys
that.
are kind of brutal.
By the
way,
there's been tons
Are you
of women
getting that
doing
from Are you getting from that? Oh, from people admitting it? Is that anecdotally or is that data?
How about some stats? How about 9% of people actually meet from Tinder?
Could that be because the men they're talking to are horrifying?
But still, that begs the question of if they're on there, right?
Suggest the question, doesn't beg the question. Different philosophical term.
That is, you're incorrectly using begs the question. Yes.
I have a question.
We know what you mean.
I have a question. If you think that 90-something% of the men are horrifying, is the problem that they're actually horrifying? Because like by definition, like how can 95% really be that bad?
That was a bit tongue in cheek, but I'm asking how you know the women are using it just for validation. Could it be that they're going on and not finding things that they want? And that could be based on conversations they're having with men as opposed to looking at their pictures? Where are you getting? There's so many factors in this, and you're just like creating this simple conclusion. And I don't know where it comes from.
I've interviewed and personally asked.
No, tell me the data. How do you know? You've asked hundreds of women, and they've told you that they're going on for validation purely.
Yes. So these are women that have come on different trips I've organized, and these are women who are hundreds. Yes, and they have literally admitted to me, I have no intention of ever using Tinder. I just have it as entertainment. And why not? Like I go on there, I see all this stuff. I'm never going to check and read all those messages.
Okay.
But
if you're telling us that, I believe you. That's not my experience. I admit it's only anecdotally. Yeah, that's surprising to me. Have to say.
It's not mine either, though. And I think that like there's a caliber or there's a class of women that might be doing it, but it's not like the intelligent, like
100%.
Also, do you think there are men? Do you think there are men that are doing that? And if not,
men aren't doing it because if they did get an actual match or a date from a woman they found attractive, they would consider it and they would probably go. Because they're much more like the idea, the sexual drive for a man in terms of just like pure, hey, there's a sexual thing. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to care. I'm just going to go do it. that drive is a lot stronger. They say it's like 9 times
What is that
stronger.
based on? 9 times. Oh, more data. What's that based on? I know a lot of women with very strong sexual drives.
So, okay, if you line up 9 women and a guy to, will you sleep with those women, right? The guy's going to say, sure, no problem, I'll do it, right? Are women going to behave the same way as men?
No matter what they look like?
If they're attracted to them.
Okay, same. Do you think it's different for a woman? What makes you think that?
Just the idea that like a mistake could end up in a 9-month pregnancy.
There are condoms and birth control.
Sure, but there's way more at risk for a woman than there is for a man.
There's not that much with condoms and birth control. I know a lot of very promiscuous women.
I'm willing to accept this conjecture, Robbie, but I don't think you can base it on that. If you want to make the argument that women select mates more carefully because of the ingrained primal childcare.
This is kind of ridiculous. We all know that men
I don't agree with that.
Sex more than women. At least
no, we don't. No, I reject that premise. Don't say we all accept that. I reject it.
I do think
Do you need to study for this one, really?
Yeah,
I do.
Men are more willing, I think, to have sex with lesser attractive females than women are. But I also think it flips that women are less likely to get in. Men are less likely to get into. Wait, what did I say? They're less likely to get in relationships with women that don't meet like some sky high standard. I think there is an asymmetry there. It's not the 9-to-1. That feels like
I don't know where that comes from. Maybe there's a slight one, but I reject that premise entirely.
So a couple things. Totally there are women with high sexual standards or high sex drives, totally 100%. But what I basically agree with what Melanie said is that the bar for what a guy will sleep with is far, far lower than what most women will sleep with, which is probably fine, actually.
A woman with a really high sex drive, do you think she's going to like basically just go bang a random dude on the internet that she's never met? Or do you think she's more likely to go bang someone that is vetted and maybe not a crazy random internet person?
I think there might be a slight difference only because of women's fear of violence, which is legitimate because those statistics are definitely real. Of a man hurting a woman in a random sexual encounter as opposed to a woman hurting a man. So maybe that, but I don't. But like, don't put numbers. Don't say 9 times because that's nonsense. That's based on nothing.
Well, I have I saw the study. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't prove it. But that's the basically going to sleep with men are 9 times more likely to just go for sex with I'm botching the actual study, but effectively men are way, way, way more likely to just go fuck than women will because of all the dangers and the different drivers in terms of attraction. Women select a lot harder for sex, whereas men select a lot harder for relationships.
So getting back to what we're talking, so the point of this was that women are more likely to use Tinder for validation, whereas men, if they get a response from a woman they find attractive, whereas a woman might just take the validation and move on, a man would actually meet up with this person and do something about it. That's what you're saying.
More likely, yeah. Obviously there's violence on both sides too. Women have domestic violence also, but not nearly to the same extent that men do. I mean, of course, there's
first encounter
exceptions, of course. It's just like,
there's no danger. Men don't actually think they're going to meet up with a girl and be in danger of physical violence.
I'm only pointing this out because it's just much more likely that a woman would use Tinder for validation. And of course, maybe some guy, I guess some narcissistic guy also might, but
I'm sure there's
much
some
more likely
guys
to be one way than the other, just because of like the way that matches work, because the matches are there's more men on Tinder looking to meet women. There's that, by the way, one statistic I wanted to throw out for the Tinder was that 30% of men are married on Tinder, which is interesting. Maybe some are looking for, what the fuck?
Fucked up.
Maybe those guys are looking for validation. I don't know. But there's so many things about Tinder. Like one that's quite interesting is it's 92% more inefficient than it's more efficient than 92% of world economies is the statistic that's often quoted on the internet. Which makes it kind of an ugly thing to try. I mean, I just think there's a lot of barriers to get through before most
Well,
people
my
are
whole
happy.
premise,
Very few people are.
my entire coaching is convincing guys to get off of online dating and to use other avenues to meet women, just because it's wildly ineffective unless you're incredibly high on the sexual market value totem pole.
I guess my input is just that I agree with your advice, but I don't understand why it's so male focused. And I think it's the same for men and women. I think you just are better off meeting people in person. You're more likely to form a real connection, because I don't even agree with this whole marketplace idea in the first place.
See,
I just don't have the. I don't coach women, I'm not saying it's
I
not
do
true
not
for
agree
them.
with that at all. I think that the efficiency of online dating and the pool of people you can meet, instantly connect with, whatever, I think that is a big advantage. I think there's clear downside to it in terms of connection, but I feel like the wider of a net you can cast to meet someone who
Robbie
you
put up
click
something,
with.
guys.
Do you guys see
And
this?
also, so I think Robbie is specifically meant by referring to physical attractiveness, because as we were talking about earlier, unless you're in the top 20% to even get looked at, you're not going to get any matches at all based on how attractive you are.
This is Robbie's stats? Whose stats are these?
These are a client's stats.
I'm going
What
to
do you
relog in,
think
but you go ahead and
about them?
explain this.
What do you
So-
think about them as a person?
Oh, I think so. This is a guy who came to me due to this, right? He swiped 95,000 times. He's been on Tinder for 3 years, and you can see he's 13,000 right swipes, only 171 matches, 123 chats, 1 date, and then nothing in the hookup department. So you can, and this guy was.
Can you show
not,
us a picture of this guy? Or maybe a picture
I
of someone
can't.
like him?
Yeah, basically just picture a guy who's like a 5.5 out of 10, like a 6 out of 10, like a decent looking, not.
Can we have
not
some
fat,
stats?
Not fat.
These are stats.
Computer programmer, right? He's in shape. Hold on, let me stop sharing this. In shape, computer programmer, makes 90,000 a year. Lives in Chicago. Not weird. Not anything sort of wrong with him. Not the best dressed. Poor fashion. Has basically a simp, as they say online, right? A kind of an inauthentic nice guy, right? And just no skills as far as communication. Very poor texter. Very no humor. But just like a decent guy who women constantly tell him, you'll make a great partner for someone one day. Just not me, but he has hooked up with women in the past in college. He's a 6 out of 10. I don't know how else to say it. And basically in every walk of life.
You should show some of the women's stats on the other side. They're pretty interesting too, but you get some really crazy metrics of. I just don't know what the average metrics are, because it's important to be a little bit centered with the analysis. But there will be girls that swipe 70,000 times and for a whole fucking year, and then finally get in a relationship kind of thing, or barely meet up with anyone, or meet up with less than. I'll misquote the stats, but you'll see some really extreme metrics in the opposite direction too.
My Tinder stats, I mean, when I was on Tinder, it was a different thing. But
Melanie, by the way, Tinder's changed a lot in the last 10 years. So
yeah, so I was my Tinder heyday was 10 years ago, and I found it to be fucking incredible. I had the best conversations with guys. I went out on dates all the time with people that I met. They were not all of them were 10 out of 10. They were all really interesting and cool and whatever. Up until 2016, really.
I have the same experience on Tinder. 2013 to 2016, I was living in New York City, and it was unbelievably good. I mean, obviously, I was
that's
very efficient about my profile, but it was great. And then it stopped being great.
Well,
what's the reason you think it stopped being great?
I already explained the reason, Melanie. The reason is that you have to, in order to desire something, you have to get to the state where it's it has to be.
Instagram.
Yes, exactly. Well, basically, people wanted things and they kept getting them. Actually, that's exactly what happened. And so people's standards keep rising. This is how desire works. It's if you keep eating you know, if you never eat fucking pizza for a really long time and all of a sudden you have pizza, it's going to be amazing. But if you have pizza every fucking day, it goes down in value. So what happened is basically people's desires mechanisms like kind of rose and rose and rose to the point of where now it's really fucking hard, and we're playing on this global level where
here's what fucked Tinder. It's Instagram. And what happened on Instagram is kind of what I alluded to before. It's men who are high status have a humongous advantage and end up effectively controlling the marketplace, and men who are low status have nothing. And what Instagram does, it gives women everywhere the allure and the access to these high status guys because they're getting matches with them, they're talking to them on Instagram, they're interacting with them, which makes them think, oh, I deserve a guy who's that high status. Why would I go out with this loser on Tinder if I can get this guy, if this guy's messaging me? And because of the mismatch.
Dan has said this to me as well. He's like, he has said that that a woman like has an experience like this, and then somehow they're just fucked for the rest of their life because they now will compare every person to them. I kind of think that's nonsense. Like, I feel like you can have sex. Let's just take a super basic example. You can have sex with a model, and it can, you know, that is what it is. I think it's insane for someone to say, okay, I just had sex with a model, therefore every next person I be with is going to have to be that or better. I don't think anyone really thinks that. And maybe a small subset of the population does have their expectations warped, because why wouldn't you calibrate to like the highest common denominator that you're able to achieve? But I don't think the majority of people
to be clear, I should have said this. I'm not talking about the average woman. I'm talking about a young, naive woman. I'm talking about a woman in maybe 18 to 22 who's pretty green to the dating market, but she is getting like, you know, she's extremely beautiful and she's getting all of this attention online. It's like, why would she go out with the guy in her class when she's getting hit up by the NBA player on Tinder and on Instagram? And so I think the maturity level of men and women is 7 years. I think men mature later than women. And therefore, like, a lot of the mismatch in the marketplace, I think a lot of what Dan might be experiencing is he's interacting with a lot of these women who are in their early 20s, and they just don't have the experience to really like understand his value in the marketplace. And they're idiots, right? They're just young idiots.
I have a great suggestion. I solved it. I have an amazing suggestion. Dan, do you know what I'm going to say?
I think I do.
I want to say that I actually, for this one, I don't know if I have.
I'm trying to think if this is relevant to me necessarily. I'm not sure if it is or not, but it's something that I've seen quite a lot based on my experiences with other people.
Date women your own age.
Oh, I do.
Novel.
Well, to be fair,
a couple things. I don't know how many women actually do this, by the way, and I have to reemphasize that it's really, really largely. It really seems largely, especially an American thing, because it's more an American thing to really, go after the best thing possible. It's like this ambitious trait I personally find to be especially American, whereas it's just not the case with other people or other cultures where they value like family and things like that, like over, oh, I gotta have the best experience and all that, blah, blah, blah. And frankly, I don't know how many women it applies to. It's just the general theme what I send. I think maybe I'm biased on this.
Melanie, do you go after men your own age?
Well, I'm in a relationship, but yes, and I would never go after men younger. I made that mistake a couple times.
Well, that's my point. It's you would never go after a man younger, right? Because why?
Because my experience has been poor. I wouldn't rule out that a younger man could not be mature, but as in aggregate, I think that it's hard to connect with people across I don't want to say generations because that's a huge exaggeration, but I feel like there needs to be some kind of sync in where you are in life. Of course, people can be more mature or less mature or whatever, or be seeking like more of a father figure or whatever. But I did not feel like I wanted to deal with the bullshit of young 20-somethings when I was at 30,
Sure. Well, what I've seen, and myself included, I feel like men mature, 7 years later than most women. Like I'm married now, I'm monogamous, but up until I was 38, the only thing I wanted to do was, hook up with, young, hot chicks on a boat. Like, that's why I threw these yacht parties, to effectively have that, outcome in my life. And then I got to a point where I was just sick of that, and I didn't give a shit anymore. But that's an experience that most men, I feel like, if they don't do that, I constantly work with clients who come to me and they're like, I got married at a young age. I married my high school sweetheart or my college girlfriend. I didn't have those experiences. I didn't become a confident, attractive man. My wife, cheated on me. She left me. She dumped me. And now I need to actually figure out these things. And now they're kind of going back to that period.
So what do you tell them? What's the advice? Can you give us an example of a problem men have and a way you fix it? Because I'm really curious about your approach to this.
That's kind of vague. So what do you mean?
You must buy the book if you want to know more.
On.
If you were to ask me, like in poker, like what's a common problem you see pretty ubiquitously, and why do you feel qualified to solve it, or what sort of knowledge do you impart
a common
to
problem,
that kind of thing?
Sure. Okay, a common problem is men effectively being simps or nice guys, or using the strategy of being nice and friendly to attract women, and that doesn't work. And these guys are constantly in the friend zone. They're getting passed over for the fuck boys, you could say, right? And they're like, I'm doing all the things. I have a good job. I have a good career. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not attracting women that are even remotely within my caliber. But every girl's telling me, oh, you'd be perfect for my friend. Or you'd be
but okay, I think we're really getting this. I feel like we're getting to the meat of it now. Do you think that they're failing because they're being nice? Or do you think that they're failing for another reason? And if they had something else and were also nice, they would be doing great. Because that's what I think.
They're failing because they don't understand psychology. They don't understand how attraction works. They don't understand how to communicate in a way that's attractive versus not.
So let's say I'm a nice guy employing your services. What do I do, Robbie?
So you basically you stop trying to trick women into bed by being nice, and you start being direct. You start confronting rejection. You put yourself out there. You get off the online dating sites where you're getting no love, and you start, there's a two-pronged approach. You build your social circle. So you meet other cool guys, and you effectively try to meet other women who are high status. You try to befriend women instead of trying to get laid all the time. You actually make female friends, and you level up your social life. You don't try to.
Yeah, but I think this whole I feel like the whole idea of it's, to the extent that this is about ultimately tricking women into being with you, I think it's going to be a failure and should be a failure. If you're advising that people become, well, you said that that's what some people are trying to do, and it sounds like you're advising them not to, but it still sounds like you're advising them to try a different strategy, a longer game to get women into bed. But I think that what we should be advising is just that you live your life, form real connections, and probably one of those will be a romantic connection. And that's it.
Well, the trick is trying to be nice, because that's already the trick. They're trying to nice their way into bed, and women find that repulsive, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm telling them to do instead is actually be direct, have a backbone, go after what you want, be okay with rejection, build your social skills, build your status, become someone of high value, and then it all happens naturally. But you can't.
Right, I agree. I'm saying being nice isn't a problem. It's just you can't be nice you can't pretend to be nice for the wrong reason.
I'm saying it authentically.
You're actually nice. That's great. Yeah. We agree. Yeah.
I think Bronwyn was concerned that you were saying nice is not the good tactic. Do this instead of being nice for the long game. I don't like the idea of these tactics at all, because I also just don't think they work.
I think the only thing that works is if you let go of needing a relationship, live your life, and form real connections.
Tactics I have a few things to say.
Yeah.
You have to first understand psychology, understand the principles that actually work. And then once you do, if you utilize tactics from the right place, they can be effective. But that's the whole problem with pickup. It's just a bunch of tactics. So it's whipped cream on shit. You're basically taking a guy who's shit, you're throwing some whipped cream on it. Great. Like, that's not going to work. Women are going to see through
What were
that.
you gonna?
So I think like a really big I almost want to call it an elephant in the room. That's really important to break out of these kind of situations is I mean, there's a couple things, but there's also something that is very difficult and going to be very difficult for most guys. And I don't really know how this ends up being solved, but a big part really is the social circle. I think that would actually matter as much or more than getting in shape to fix these kinds of things. And then there has to be, as Bronwyn said, some kind of value that has to be added in some kind of way. The question that I would ask is, I mean, Robbie's like, from my understanding, what Robbie's saying is like, be more direct and like, I mean, that's definitely true. You have to make moves. You have to show intent and all that stuff. Like that matters that's way better than like doing nothing and hoping things work out. I mean, that could work if you're high value enough, I guess. And giving women the right kind of emotions, like having that social finesse or panache or whatever Melanie wants to call it. The question I would have to ask is like, what is this extra something that most guys can give? Because I don't think it's really that easy of a question to answer. I mean, I think if a guy really has like a good reputation in his social circle and there's lots of women in it, like he's a doctor and there's lots of nurses or whatever it is, or he's a DJ and he knows lots of women, or he's a well-known DJ, like I can see that totally working.
Well, this is why I reject the whole idea, the whole concept of a market, because I don't think it's like I don't think it's like buying a microwave that just like works or it doesn't. I think there's something much more to human connections. And so I don't think it makes sense to value everyone on the same set of metrics. I actually think that certain people have chemistries and have shared interests. And so this I really just, I don't understand this entire concept. I don't think it makes sense to talk about like, so what can every guy do beyond being nice that will help? I don't think that exists. I think some guys can do a certain thing that will appeal to a certain woman, and other guys will do another thing that appeals to a different woman.
Well, I totally agree with you.
That.
I mean, can I go first and then you, Robbie?
Sure. Sorry, Dan, go for it.
I think that there's truth in that, but there's still like, metrics that have market-like features, especially when you pigeonhole them to how Tinder works, where it's literally you have to swipe right or swipe left based on pictures. Then like it functions as a fucking market because because literally it was designed to be such.
That's why I understand your criticisms with Tinder. I mean, it basically is just, it's pictures, and you can make a stupid little bio and then like have a stupid little text conversation, but it's not real meeting. So I think we are in agreement there that online dating is a different thing and does have a lot of problems. Yeah.
Well, it's just too superficial, which is to your point, Bronwyn, is that like you're not able to feel chemistry or to understand these certain things because you're immediately just swiping based on how they look, right?
Fully disagree.
You disagree that people are swiping based on how they look? Of course they are.
No, duh. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is a tangible thing to chemistry online. Like consider remember the golden era of AIM and like all that stuff. You would have these like
start messaging.
Super long. Yeah, but I think that like
let's say
yeah, I agree with you, Melanie. You can have a chemistry over text messaging. Absolutely agree. But there are people, actually, I have many experiences with this, that if I saw them on Tinder, I would swipe left. And when we've met in person, we have chemistry.
That's why I tell my clients to meet women in real life.
Yeah. But by the same token, there's other people that you can connect with who you might not have ever met in real life. And the big thing about Tinder, right, via your graph is like conversion, right? There's a huge drop off from swipes to talks to dates to whatever. But if you make it to the talk stage, I completely reject that there is nothing a guy can say and nothing a guy can do. Like I still think about to this day, I mean, like I don't think about it constantly, but when Tinder comes up, I think about this guy. He wasn't like that hot or whatever. He was just average, normal, but he had this picture as his front picture. He was like lying on a bed, like sideways in, the porn star position. And there was a laptop open in front of like his crotch to a picture of a fireplace. And it was so fucking funny. I swiped right on him, and I think many other women would have done the same. And that's an example of like personality being able to trump that stuff. I know I'm just giving one anecdotal example, but I think of something like that, or I think of things like people have said to me on text that I could easily determine if I were compatible with them or not. And it was a very efficient way to meet people. Whereas you have to like, it's just so much like the analog version, I guess you could say, of live just takes so much more time to go through some of these interactions. I think they both have benefits and disadvantages.
No, I put the stat back up there because they're only getting 100. It's just never happening for guys, right? Like getting to that point that you're talking about is so rare. And
but you're saying he's a 5. You're saying he's a 5 and he's still getting what, 60 matches a year? He's getting he's getting like a few good matches every month. Like you could convert that into some dates, I think.
I mean,
he didn't.
He's getting what, 5 matches a month? 5 matches a month. So you're getting a different match every week and then some. And you can't have a conversation like
nothing. That's like you're fucked.
Torture.
Yeah, you're fucked. Like just look at the swipes compared to
also look at the matches.
Look, yeah. I love data. I really do. I love seeing something like this, but I believe there are things guys can do. Firstly, to get more matches with. That's why we have. I think the selection of photos is so bad that guys usually put. After that, I think you can have better opening lines. Like there's just improvement.
But you're still selecting for looks, right? Like to get to that conversation, he has to cross a threshold of, okay, maybe he's not exactly my type, but I'll consider him if his game and personality is great.
Yeah, but Melanie just offered an example of something that's in a picture.
I have done that. I have been like, he's not quite my type, but let's see. But
in person, let's say a guy's completely not your type. Like, let's say he's gross or not gross, but let's say he's physically just not your type at all. If that guy is incredibly funny and basically flips the right switches that, make you emotionally invested, you could overcome the looks as well. You've never dated a guy who's like, this guy's not my type at all.
There's a threshold.
But you wouldn't meet that guy online.
You're arguing that the threshold is lower live, and I still think people select for looks really hard live. I think I don't think.
No, but I have to agree with Dan because I have examples. I just said I'm seeing someone right now who, if I saw him on a dating app, I would have swiped left. We have amazing chemistry. He's so great and funny, and that wouldn't have happened online. And yeah,
I have some more data to add to this story, or some more fun facts for you guys.
Please, so, I'm ready for more data. Oh.
So as it turns out,
Melody's turned on by
to be
data.
funny is like not very easy, and there's various different audiences for this. There's various different audiences for different kinds of humor. I mean, this is one of the things that comedians find out and all that. But even there was a group that was ran by what was it called? I forget its name, but there was there's at least one group of online dating coaches. Maybe you know who I'm talking about, Robbie, that literally tried a million lines and found out which ones worked the best, and then they sold their product on the internet. Yes, that's what it was. Endless Options, run by that dude Jesse and their crew. And they used a really hard data approach. And, I heard some of these lines, and let me tell you, some of them landed like crazy. Well, that's and then I tried a bunch of my own stuff, and it would work on a varying degree, even if I thought it was funny or whatever. I hated the idea of using someone else's fucking line all the time. So there's loads of this data, and they even offered a service so that they could they would do the online dating for you. So as a matter of fact, now online dating is getting to this point where no one wants to deal with it, or not no one, but people want to just pay people to deal with it. And now there's these watches.
But this to me comes back to it not making sense to speak of these things as if there's some objective standard. I mean, so say you tell a joke, someone likes it, it's on your profile, and then you talk, and that's actually not your sense of humor at all, then if your goal is to get a girlfriend, then that's probably not going to work. So probably you should be yourself, which I know annoys people, and then you'll find someone you actually connect with. And I tell this to my female friends too. I see this all the time. I see women presenting this picture of themselves that's not themselves at all, and then they go on a couple dates, and it doesn't work out, and it's because the person wasn't attracted to, they were attracted to an illusion. They weren't attracted to you.
Or catfished.
Yeah, kind of like on a, it's a very low degree, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but also like the jokes that people make, there aren't always like, there's quite some variance even to the jokes that people make. I'm sure you've had this experience where you've had dates that have gone really well with someone and just don't, you have another date and it just doesn't go that well for some reason. I mean, surely that's happened with you. I mean, sometimes I myself, I'm not always the same person on dates for whatever reason. I have to get in like a special mood to like be really jokey or whatever. And then there's
oh, you don't say.
What I like to tell people is that like online dating and Instagram, it's fake, right? The money's real, but it's fake. The outcome's real, but everything online is fake. Like the pictures are fake. People are photoshopping stuff. The conversations that you might be having with that guy who's so interesting could be canned lines. I give my clients like lists of scripts to follow and variations of scripts to follow. And then if the girl calls them out for like, you're clearly using a script, there's a line saying, yeah, of course I'm using a script. I'd be an idiot to actually spend my time thinking of individual messages for each girl because there's so many women on here that never intend to go on a date.
See,
and
I
the
reject
girls say
that.
yes.
I reject that so fucking much. I hate that. I hate being people like, well, I don't get enough, so let's just game this out or whatever. I like the intelligence to bot it out, but I feel like you need to put in time and effort if you desire a high quality outcome.
Well, that is the time and effort you're putting in. Is you're learning the scripts, you're learning
the data doesn't agree with you on this one. The data agrees with Robbie in that you should start with like some canned opener or something like that because like it's far more efficient to do that, and you only lose like 25% of your matches.
I don't think you should be efficient. I don't think you need to be efficient with that part of your effort. I think let's say you're twice as inefficient. But it results in a 25% better outcome. Do it. It's an important endeavor. Like,
but I want to go even further back. I don't even understand. I don't even understand the project of finding a girlfriend. Like I want to find a girlfriend, whatever it takes. If I have to hire someone to make this joke, if I have to like pretend to be someone else for a while, like why do you even want that? I just really don't understand. Why aren't you just living your life and like if a connection comes along, great. What do people want a girlfriend for?
We're a thirsty guy who's not getting laid and he has no sort
of.
So
go to a prostitute.
But that doesn't solve the problem of companionship and love and connection.
Neither does this. You're not finding real love and connection if you're pretending to be someone else.
So this guy's to die alone. I think that would the die alone path.
The guy who we're speaking about is not of sound mind, right? He's so
well, the guy or woman, because I meet these people too. Yes, but so then why are you coaching them? Why don't you coach them to go down a different path?
But
why are you coaching them to find a girlfriend that's not compatible with them at all? That's not going to lead to fulfillment.
What do you mean? We're not coaching them to find a girlfriend that's not compatible.
But they're not going to be compatible if he's pretending to be someone else to find them.
I don't think Robbie advocates that.
We're talking about like the random guy who's thirsty online, who's I kind of lost.
We're talking about messaging guys online.
We're talking about guys online. We're talking about guys online who want a girlfriend, right?
Okay.
Why do they want a girlfriend? They want just any girl, or do they want someone they have a real connection with?
Well, it depends on how pathetic and thirsty you are, right? For the guy who's totally, he just feels an intense sense of loneliness and desperation, he'd probably settle for something that's, maybe not as good as he could effectively do, but
I just think that's really unhealthy to seek connection in a relationship that's necessarily sexual. I think you should seek connection in friendships, and then if you can't find anyone to have sex with you, then you should pay a prostitute. That's how I feel. I think
I agree. I think if you're only getting a relationship to get laid, that's a horrible reason.
I'm glad we agree.
But typically those guys they've already hired the prostitutes and they've they found no value in that, and they are looking for a real connection, right? They're just very poor at cultivating it.
So I think this is part of what manifests as a bit of an issue between men and women is that a lot of guys, when they're going on dates, especially on Tinder or whatever, they're not really looking for a relationship. A lot of the time, they're looking to get laid. A lot of the time, and I think a lot of the women are not necessarily thinking like that. And so when if they actually do hook up, a lot of the time, this is what will lead into a like a situation where the guy's just not going to last he's not going to stick around too long. And, the woman thought like it would lead into a relationship, but it doesn't. And I think this is one of the sources of a lot of problems in dating, to be honest, is quite a miscommunication here. And also a bit of a bad, what's the word? Bad, is the word bad faith by like some of the guys?
So the idea that men, the idea that men are looking for short-term dating, but they're projecting or they're selling themselves as a long-term option, and that mismatch in the market.
Well, especially because I don't use that many dating apps, but on Bumble you can say what you're looking for. So if you're saying you can put looking for a relationship or looking for something casual. So if you put you're looking for a relationship and you're not, then that's not cool, I think.
Well, most guys are incentivized to lie about that, right? And to lead a woman on to think that they're interested in long-term dating to get laid, when in fact they're just looking to get laid. And that's a huge problem in the dating market, right? That happens. As a woman, you've developed many spidey senses to sniff those guys out, right? That's why you make them wait for sex. That's why you make them take you on many dates. You're like, all right, is this guy in it to win it, or is this trying to, get laid?
I've never made anyone wait for sex. I like you or I don't.
If there were more Broadwoods out there, the world would be a better place.
I know. Tell me about it. Fucking tell me about it.
We just need only Bronwyns in the world. There would be no problems. Everything would be.
Can I share this part of the recording?
That's true either.
This is going to be public. You can share it at your leisure.
We'll be able to edit it. So, by the way, I still think there's some value from their perspective to waiting, just because of the way the world works. Because I can tell you for myself, like if I have to go on like a bunch of dates with someone, this is what I'd be thinking. And if I'm thinking, so actually, I'm actually wondering if they're looking for a relationship or not, because that will lead me to be conflicted with sleeping with them. I've turned girls down because I thought that they were looking for a relationship, and I thought, I wasn't going to sleep with them too many times. On top of that, the only way to filter, the most reliable way to filter that out is by making them wait, because the guy that's going to put in effort is going to be the guy that's much more serious, like 100 million %. Like there's just no way around
I've
that.
never been in a situation where I've been like, I can't tell what this guy is into, and if I wait 2 weeks, then I'll know. Like
What about when you were like 19?
No, like
hold on. You've never been in a situation where you liked the guy and he only, banged you once, and then he kind of like, just went away, and you were upset that like, oh, what happened? I thought that guy was into me.
That has happened maybe like a couple times in my life, but it was simply due to like a complete like anomaly, I think, of misreading by me of the situation and how into me he was. I think that typically I have been incredibly good at reading that, and
this happened when you were younger,
okay,
right?
I can I would say all the way up until 30.
And
I've been in a relationship since then, But
how'd you feel after that? Like, did you feel like you fucked up, or that you were stupid?
I felt like I didn't know. I felt like I just didn't get it. I was like, I was into this guy. I've had it the other way around, where the guy was like really into me and I wasn't. But usually when I was really into a guy and I was kind of like flabbergasted that it was only like a one night thing or whatever, I was just like, wow, I've like really completely misread the situation. I thought that he was really into me. He clearly wasn't. Waiting a week to have sex with him wouldn't have changed that. I felt like I could read it, and it was
it doesn't change anything. So it doesn't change anything.
It could have changed it, because if you would have made him wait, he may have stopped pursuing, and then,
I
giving
kind
you
of
the
feel
answer.
like you can tell when people are into you, they're into you. Like, and that traverses so much. Like the joke you make that you're like so worried if it'll put someone off. If they're fucking into you, they're gonna find it cute, and if they're not, they're gonna find it gross and weird. And there are ways to like test that. Like my current partner told me once that his tactic was sometimes to sort of like test this waters would be like make a sexual joke. And then if like the woman, you could watch how your date would respond to that. And if they sounded like, into it or whatever, if they were just like, oh, like, I can't believe you and whatever, then it's like very easy to sort of like take the gas off and be like, it's joking, whatever. But what I mean is like, if you're into them, then none of those like small decision points like really matter that much. And I found myself more reckoning with, okay, here's my read on this guy and how into me they are. Is this what I want? Do I want, if I just wanted to have sex with him, do I want to have to deal with the fact that they're clearly super into me? Or if they're not into me and they just want to have sex with me, is that a situation I want to put myself in and proceed from there? It's never like it's never this like nebulous, I just can't tell. Like you're reminding me of that video, which I know you know, where they're just like, all right, she's in a bar, she's winking to you, she's saying buy me a drink. Is she into you? Kind of hard to tell all the way up to you're having sex.
I literally just watched that for the first time yesterday.
Then again, it's really hard to tell. You just never know. She could just be, So, but that's, yeah.
That's, yeah. Could we maybe have part 2 of this another time? Because I have to run.
No.
And I'm loving this. I'm loving this so much, but I really have to go. What could we have part 2 of this soon? Because I want to come to some conclusions.
I would love to have
where
part 2.
can we go from here and whatever.
I think we do clear conclusions of sorts, especially if we actually agree on things.
We do.
I mean, so I think part of the logic women use is that it makes the guys more attached or something like that. I don't know. I don't think that's true from my experience, but maybe
it's an artificial inflation of your selection value. You're saying, oh, I have really high selection criteria. Therefore, that person views you as, or they view themselves as potentially more valuable if your selection criteria is so high. It's all about themselves. Like the whole reason guys want to sleep with women that aren't sluts or whatever that trope would be is because they think, oh, they have such high selection criteria. That means I must be so valuable. It's all the same thing as like the biker, the like bad boy biker. Why do you want a bad boy biker? Because their selection criteria for who they actually show emotion for is so high that it means I must be so amazing if like this guy will fall in love with me.
Right, but I think because sexual norms have changed so much, and I could be wrong, but based on my experience, that because sex happens so often and people are so willing to have sex like on a first date or whatever, your desirability from someone like being too into or not, whatever, can often come after sex. It's like, okay, sure, we had sex, but like, do you really like me? Like, are you responding to my messages? Are we going on another date? So to me, in my world, in my dating experience, that has been lost, and that's old fashioned. I don't know.
So you're making the decision after sex.
No, I think but anyone, I think making someone wait for sex, I don't think has the same power that it used to.
I agree. All right.
Luckily for all of us.
We can agree on that.
Okay, wait. So can we have part 2 like ASAP? So we don't lose our vibe, because I have to go like literally this minute.
If everyone agrees, we should talk about our bet very briefly. But basically, I bet Melody that she could she could get dates with this with someone that I actually want to like see multiple times. I just gave her money if like she'll do it and figure it out.
I get $800 for every successful date I get.
Because she's telling me that my pictures are like not really representative of myself.
His pictures aren't good. They highlight his worst traits. I don't think he's putting effort into talking to women. I feel like there actually is a difference between like value and the skill you display. And we'll see.
What site?
I think I can get more dates as him.
I don't put in much effort on the first message, but the other ones I do.
But I also think my thesis is that I'll be better than you. My thesis is that the way I interact with women, I will use my super highly attuned social skills that I believe I am better at than you.
Can we do
so many lovely qualities, Dan?
Can we do a part 2? Can we do a part 2 and then also after you've done this, do a part 3 with screenshots? Because I really want to do that.
So throw my hat into the ring in the bet. I want to bet. I want to bet that I can beat Melody with Dan's profile.
Yeah. Yes, we have to do this.
Okay, I like this. Here's how it's gonna work. For
I
every
like for
date,
my eyes to be opened.
for every
I-
date I get Dan, I get $800. For every additional date that Robbie gets, I have to give up the money that I won from Dan.
So you know,
problem is,
ours
are we? So
We have to figure out the terms.
we might disagree on the photos and that sort of thing. So how do we solve for that?
Oh, that's hard.
We
No,
don't.
you guys can pick the photos. I would
you
like
decide
for both of
your
you
own.
guys to
We
independently
get to
try.
decide our own profile. We get to have our own version of Dan that we're working
So,
on.
I mean, part of a couple things. So, part of the thing that makes this really hard for like average guys is it's not that easy to figure out which photos are actually good. I've gone through quite some motions with that, and so on top of that, like, yeah, I just I'm not buying that you're gonna send some magic bullet messages. And part, by the way, is to get some of those girls that we're talking about. So if you can't, that means you're not performing very well. In LA, I'm not sure. I haven't used Tinder here, to be precise. In other places, I
So
have.
basically, I'm gonna build my Dan profile. Melanie's gonna build her Dan profile, and we're gonna see which performs.
And are you gonna have 2 profiles on the same
If
app?
any. I don't know. If we
Okay,
can do
because
that.
you can't do 2 different apps because that's different. I don't know. This is a little hard.
Right.
We need to talk about it.
I think you can
How
have
do we
two
do
different.
3 Dans on Hinge? Is that going to work?
Well, I have a profile that I use for research. I can just swap out the photos for Dan and
Oh,
Shane.
true.
Oh, perfect. So maybe Dan will be Justin or whatever.
Yeah, it could be Dan or Robbie.
No,
Yeah.
just call me Dan.
Oh,
whatever.
Justin. Yeah.
It'll be Robbie. Easy.
Let's end on that, or I have to end on that note. But it was so nice talking to all you guys and vibing in this whole dating atmosphere. I second that there should be more Bronwyns in the world that would make it better, more
I
efficient
second it.
place.
Get her hair down. That's another point for her.
Oh shit!
Oh, there we go.
Her
There we go.
sexual
She's
market
really
value
bringing
is
it
going
on.
through the roof.
We got her hair down. Something happened. All right, we acknowledge something. That's the result of this podcast.
Okay.
This was
really
really
nice.
fun. Thanks for including me.
Yeah,
thank
really
you.
nice meeting you, Robbie. Thanks for hosting again, Dan, and to be continued.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're a regular listener and you're digging our content, do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review. It's how other people learn about the show and how we can spread the word. If you don't feel like it's worthy of 5 stars, just go ahead, don't leave any review at all. And I want to let you know that we've opened up a few slots in our exclusive community. We're accepting applications to join our select group of men and experience the radical power of accountability, step up your game, cross everything off your sexual bucket list, and become a beast at accomplishing all of your goals. To learn more and apply, go to innerconfidence.com/community.